Everyone assumes EV batteries are the ticking clock. They're not. The real clock is something almost nobody talks about, and it starts long before the battery ever fails. Let's follow an EV through its entire life year by year and find out exactly how long owning one actually makes sense. Years 1 through 3, the easy years. For most EV owners, these are the simplest years of ownership. There's no engine oil to change, there are fewer moving drivetrain components than a gas car. An EV powertrain can run on as few as 20 moving parts compared to more than 20,000 in a traditional combustion engine. Regenerative braking reduces brake wear dramatically, with many owners reporting 70,000 plus miles before their first brake service. And virtually everything important, the battery, the motor, and electronics is still fully covered under warranty. Battery degradation is already happening in these years, but it happens gradually. It doesn't suddenly destroy the usable range. Real-world data from Geotab, which analyzed thousands of EVs, found that batteries lose an average of about 2.3% of their capacity every year. So a car that started with 300 miles of range might show something like 293 miles after year 1, and around 266 miles after 5 years. It's a number that most drivers wouldn't even notice behind the wheel. Owners who charge smart tend to keep that number even smaller, sticking to a home level 2 charger for daily use, keeping the battery between roughly 20 and 80% instead of running it flat or topping it up to 100% every night. Avoiding constant reliance on DC fast chargers all help the slow rate of battery degradation. None of this is complicated, it's closer to habit than maintenance. At this stage, keeping the EV is usually the easy decision. Years 4 through 6, the first real costs appear. Now, normal vehicle aging starts to become more noticeable. Tires, suspension components, the 12-volt battery, and brakes, the regular wear items every car has, can start to require attention. And here's something a lot of new EV owners don't expect. Because EVs are heavier than equivalent gas cars due to weight of the battery pack, tires often wear out a bit faster. Technology also starts aging surprisingly quickly. A 6-year-old EV might drive perfectly fine, but its charging speed, its software, and its overall efficiency can already feel outdated next to something new. A car that once fast charged from 10 to 80% in 30 minutes might now look slow next to a newer model doing the same thing in under 20. Heat plays a bigger role here than most owners expect too. Lithium-ion batteries perform best between roughly 50 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. And the real enemy of long-term battery health isn't cold, it's sustained high heat, especially when a car sits parked and charging in direct sun for years at a time. Most modern EVs use active thermal management to fight this, but it's still one of the biggest variables separating a battery that ages gracefully from one that doesn't. And that's when some owners start thinking about upgrading, long before the battery actually needs replacing. Years 7 through 8, the most important turning point. This is where EV ownership gets interesting. Most manufacturers build their battery warranties around roughly 8 years or 100,000 miles, although exact coverage varies. Tesla covers its batteries for 8 years and up to 100,000 to 150,000 miles depending on the model. Hyundai and Kia offer 10 years or 100,000 miles. Nearly every major automaker guarantees the battery will retain at least 70% of its original capacity during that period. And if it drops below that threshold before the warranty runs out, it gets replaced for free. That means owners approaching this point need to start thinking differently. How healthy is the battery really? How much range remains? And what expensive components are about to fall outside of the warranty protection? The EV doesn't suddenly become unreliable at 8 years. But your financial safety net can change dramatically the moment that warranty clock runs out. This is also the point where regulations start mattering more than the marketing. The US government mandates a minimum of 8 years or 100,000 miles of battery coverage. But some states push that further. California requires 10 years or 150,000 miles. Rivian goes beyond the federal minimum, covering its R1T battery for 8 years or 175,000 miles. Read the fine print though. Some manufacturers like Nissan on its Ariya will void coverage if the car sits with a near-zero charge for more than 14 days, the kind of detail that only matters once you're actually living in the later years of ownership. Years 9 through 10, should you keep it? A 10-year-old EV doesn't automatically need a new battery, not even close. Early high-mileage electric cars have already proven that batteries can remain usable for beyond the mileage many buyers originally feared. A crowdsourced study of Tesla Model S owners found average degradation of only around 5% after 50,000 miles, and the degradation curve actually flattens out over time, landing around 10% or less even after 150,000 to 200,000 miles. But there's another problem. It's not the battery, it's the value of the car. A major repair that makes complete sense on a 40,000 EV might make absolutely no sense once that same vehicle is only worth $8,000. At that point, you're not really deciding whether the car can be fixed, you're deciding whether it's worth fixing. At this age, economics can kill an EV before the battery does. It's worth remembering too that most manufacturer warranties don't promise 100% of the original range for the full warranty period. They promise a floor, usually around 70%. Rivian's warranty, for example, only triggers a repair or replacement if range drops below that 70% line before the coverage expires. So even a battery performing as expected by year 9 or 10 has already given up a real chunk of its original range. The question isn't whether that's happened, it's whether what's left still works for how you actually drive. If you're finding this useful so far, this is a good moment to subscribe because we're about to get into the one repair every EV owner actually worries about. Years 10 through 15. This is where we find out. This is the age range that will teach us the most about modern EV longevity, because it's the range where the data is still being written in real time. Tesla Model S vehicles, Nissan Leafs, and other early mass-market EVs have already given us a preview of what long-term electric ownership can actually look like. Some have needed major repairs, others have racked up enormous mileage on their original electric drivetrains without a single issue. And that's the important lesson here. There's no universal expiration date for an EV. The Electric Vehicle Council estimates the average EV lifespan at around 15 years, or roughly 180 to 200 kilometers, right in line with what's expected from a comparable gas or diesel car. One UK study of nearly 300 million vehicle inspection records actually found EVs averaging 18.4 years of life, edging out petrol cars at 18.7 years and clearly beating diesel at 16.8 years. Those same EVs covered up to 124,200 miles during their lifespan on average, ahead of the roughly 116,000 miles typical for a petrol car. The US Department of Energy takes a similar view, predicting today's EV batteries should realistically last 12 to 15 years in moderate climates, and 8 to 12 years even in harsher, more extreme conditions. Given that the average age of all passenger vehicles on US roads is already around 12 and a half years, there's a real chance your EV's battery outlasts your interest in the car itself. What about 200,000 miles? Mileage may matter differently in an EV than most buyers expect. Electric motors are extremely durable. Some manufacturers rate them over 1 million miles of theoretical operation, and a battery doesn't suddenly stop working the moment the odometer hits 100,000 miles. Instead, capacity generally declines progressively over time and use, not all at once. A European study covering more than 7,000 EVs found that most batteries still retained over 80% of their original capacity after 200,000 kilometers. In Australia, EVs with 80,000 to 120,000 kilometers on the clock averaged 91% battery health. Even the higher mileage group, past 120,000 kilometers, still averaged 83%. 100,000 miles isn't necessarily the end anymore. Even 200,000 miles doesn't automatically mean the car is finished. Battery chemistry is part of why this keeps improving. Newer lithium iron phosphate cells, now used by a growing number of manufacturers, can handle more than 3,000 full charge cycles, while still holding on to over 80% of their capacity, a meaningful jump over earlier nickel-based formulations. Combine that with smarter software that manages charging speed, temperature, and cell balancing automatically, and a lot of the degradation that plagued early EVs like the Nissan Leaf simply doesn't apply to what's rolling off the line today. So here's the repair that can change everything. There's still one repair that every long-term EV owner has in the back of their mind: the high-voltage battery. Complete battery failure isn't something every EV experiences. A study by Recurrent found that only about 2.5% of EVs have ever needed a battery replacement, excluding recalls. But when an out-of-warranty replacement does happen, it can be expensive enough to change the entire math of keeping an older car. In Germany, full battery replacements have run anywhere from roughly 4,500 euros to 18,600 euros, depending on the vehicle, the battery size, and the manufacturer. In the US, costs range from a few $1,000s for a partial module swap to well over $10,000 for a full pack. And batteries aren't the only concern. Electronics, charging hardware, thermal management systems, and suspension components can all become costly as the car ages. just like they would on any vehicle. Long-term EV ownership isn't maintenance-free. It's simply a different kind of maintenance. Less frequent, but occasionally more expensive when something goes wrong. When something does go wrong. So when should you actually sell your EV? There's no magic year when every EV should be sold. If battery health remains strong, the range still fits your lifestyle, and repair costs stay reasonable, keeping an EV for 10 years or longer can be perfectly realistic. Even 15 years based on the averages we're already seeing. The real point to consider ownership isn't a specific birthday for the car. It's the moment when remaining vehicle value plus battery health plus expected repair costs stop making financial sense together. That's the actual formula. Not an age on its own, not mileage on its own, but all three combined. And here's what's worth remembering when that day comes. Even a battery that's no longer good enough for a car isn't garbage. Companies are already taking end-of-life EV batteries and converting them into stationary storage for homes and buildings, where they can keep working for another decade. After that, recycling recovers the lithium, cobalt, and nickel inside to build the next generation of batteries, with the EU targeting 70% recycling of lithium-ion batteries by 2030 and similar policies taking shape in the US. So, the surprising answer may be this. You can own an EV much longer than most people think. You just need to know when the numbers stop working in your favor. What's your plan? Are you the type to keep a car until it truly can't be fixed? Or do you trade it in the moment something feels outdated? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more videos that actually dig into the real numbers behind EV ownership, subscribe. There's a lot more of this coming.